Hi, welcome back to Here We Grow Again. This is episode 4, and we're going to talk about healing, and it's always possible. What does that mean? Healing is always possible. Well, we all have the decision in regards to mental health to make some choices. We don't have to live in our past trauma. We don't have to live in our past experiences. We don't have to continue to own the identity of all of the things that have hurt us. We have the opportunity to heal. It requires a lot of work. And you may not always find yourself ready to continue or start that journey of healing. I will tell you that I have been struggling with mental health issues for many years, probably greater than 15 years. And different seasons, it showed up differently. But we are given that opportunity and that choice to decide to put in the work. You'll see I have a little sign behind me today, and it says, if you don't work on your healing, it will show up in. We're going to kind of talk about some of the things that these trauma experiences or past experiences, these unhealed parts of us, where they show up. Going through my own journey, and again, why I named this podcast Here We Grow Again, is because life continually hands us all of these opportunities to take one of two roads: to identify in our trauma and stay and dwell in it, and I've been there, or the path of healing. And I'm going to be honest with you, there have been so many times where just staying in and dwelling in the issues and the pain was easier. It was easier to excuse away my behavior. How many can relate to that? If not for you, for someone else around you. When it says if you don't work on your healing, it will show up in. If you notice at the very bottom, it says your relationships with others. So this didn't come up as much for me until I got married, because I really kind of was on my own. I didn't have a husband to answer to or to argue with. Not that we argue at all. No, our 15 years of marriage have been perfect. No arguments whatsoever. If you believe that, then I'll tell you another lie. But a lot of the beginning of our marriage was based on my unhealed self. And it's exactly what it says. If you don't work on your healing, it'll show up in your relationship with others. It showed up in every one of my relationships in my adult years. I may not have realized it as much before I got married, but I was also much younger. As an adult, not only did I get held to a new standard and a higher standard, I was now involved in a relationship where mutual respect is needed and expected. And neither of us knew really how to do that. So the unhealed version of me showed up in so many areas and caused so much pain, not only with my spouse, but with friends, colleagues, strangers. Think of a time when you reacted to someone poorly, and maybe in that moment it felt justified why you were coming off so angry and aggressive. And, at that moment, you probably felt justified in the way you were behaving. But there was probably, at least for me, a period of time after that where you stopped and went, wow, that's really not how I want to behave. That's not how I want people to see me or remember me. That's not how I want to be viewed by others. And so the unhealed version of me was showing up in these relationships, even just simple ones in society. Another one here is the way you talk to yourself. There's so many times where I just degraded myself because I didn't love myself enough to say nice things to myself. I've heard in my own counseling journey and through several books and audiobooks I've listened to, would you allow your best friend to sit next to you and talk to you the way that you talk to you? And that was very eye-opening for me. And so I'm still a work in progress with that. I correct myself pretty much daily. Even trivial things, I'll say like, oh, I'm so dumb. And I'll immediately stop and go, no, I am not dumb. Because I am healing and I am working very hard on that path of healing. Because again, we have the opportunity to choose healing, but it's hard. It's a lot of work. And there's this phrase used a lot in mental health that healing is not linear. You don't just wake up and decide, I'm going to start my healing journey today, and it's going to be this beautiful straight line of healing. It's not like that at all. You heal, things are going well, and then they're not going well, and then they're going well, and then we take a few steps back. And the process is hard. It's very hard, but it's so worth it because you show up a different person when you're healed. You show up different in the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to others. Your relationships with others will improve. My relationship with my spouse is probably one of the greatest accomplishments through this healing journey. I had been told for at least 3 or 4 years in multiple settings, from the doctor, things like that, why don't you see a counselor? I had been diagnosed with anxiety and depression, had some health issues going on. And if you look here, your physical health, if you don't work on your healing, it'll show up in your physical health. It's very true. And so many times I had been told, why don't you seek some help? Go see a counselor. No, I'm okay. No, I'm good. I can handle this. I don't have time for that. And my biggest regret is not doing this sooner. But in the same sense, was I ever ready? Because I was given that opportunity there each of these times. Why don't you see someone? No, I had read a lot of self-help books, tried to listen to podcasts, pray and begged God, please just heal me, fix me. I wanted this instantaneous, all better. I didn't want to have to put in all this work. I didn't have time to put in all this work. But it was also damaging all the relationships around me. And the growth I've seen since I've started my healing journey, just back in September of 2023, I have reaped so many benefits from the beginning of this journey. My relationship is in the best place it's ever been with my spouse. Through this journey, things got pretty ugly. My husband will tell you, and anyone who's around during this time, we had moments where I didn't know if I could stay. I was so broken and so sad, and healing and the journey of healing is so hard. It brings up a lot. It brings up all those past pains. You have to undig some of that stuff, unpack some of that baggage. And, some people use that as an excuse to run away from the healing process or say, yeah, I'm not going to go to counseling because I'm not going back through that. But let me tell you something. It was all those things were just packed in a suitcase and just pushed aside, taking up space, taking up vital storage in my life that didn't need to be there anymore. I was having the same reactions, overreacting, angry. And I prayed for a long time, God, heal me of my anger. It wasn't an anger issue I had. We had to dig down below the surface there and find out what was the root of that anger. And for me, the root of that anger settled upon a couple of core wounds, which were abandonment and rejection. And rejection is in so many things, and I still deal with that now. I'm still working through that part of that journey. It can be as simple as, somebody ignoring a text, not answering a call, not making the time for you, even though their reasoning really has nothing to do with you. When you're dealing with that rejection, it absolutely is your fault. It's all you. It brings on shame and guilt, and all of these things add up. Okay, so I had all these layers of all these painful things that really were just packed down there. And through time, there wasn't a lot of room, and it all came bubbling out of me as anger. If you don't work on your healing, it will show up in what you can tolerate from others. I couldn't tolerate a whole lot. A sideways glance. Something's wrong with me. They don't like me. I know I'm not alone. I've talked to many other women who have been through these situations and thought these very same thoughts. Or, they don't like me. They think this, that, or the other. And, you'll run through all these thoughts in your own mind of things you think about yourself and project them out there and think, well, that must be what they think of me. And so working on your healing is so important. This journey to me has shown me a whole different Elizabeth. I was talking to a friend and I said, I almost don't even recognize the Elizabeth from the beginning of September of 2023 to the Elizabeth of spring of 2024. And her and I had this discussion that I believe it was John Maxwell had made a comment that you should change so much that you have to reintroduce yourself to yourself, and in a good way, change for the better, not because others have forced you to change. And I probably destroyed his quote there, and I'll look back at that, but it was so profound to me because that is where I'm at today. I don't recognize who I was. I love who I am becoming. For the first time in my life, I can look in the mirror and say, I love her. Hey, you look pretty today. When before I could barely even look myself in the mirror. I hated who I was, everything about me. I wasn't good enough. How are you a pastor's wife? Why did he choose you? I would apologize time and time again. I'm so sorry that you chose me, because I never felt good enough. One of my biggest accomplishments in this healing process is loving myself. Because if I love myself, I show up a whole different person to everybody else around me. I'm a better mom, a better wife. I'm a better colleague. I am a better parent to my kids in the concept of, with their school. I don't feel like I don't fit in. I used to try to guard myself from other people so that I couldn't make a bad impression. And as time has gone on, I've learned that a lot of us have more in common than we don't. There are those who have not grown up in the same setting that I have, or have not dealt with rejection, who have not dealt with abandonment issues. Just because I'm working on those things doesn't mean that I don't forgive the things from my past. I forgive. The problem is I wasn't able to unpack that stuff and really process the feelings. So in learning to love myself, I show up differently. I also give myself a lot more grace. Choosing to heal, you will see areas where you were so hard on yourself when you didn't give yourself any grace, when you would extend love to others that you wouldn't even extend towards yourself. And it's so important that we love ourselves, not in a narcissistic way, but in a God made me, I am wonderfully and beautifully created in His image. I am worthy of His love. And how can I hate something that He created? And so learning to love myself has helped me to give myself grace when I'm tired. It's okay to take a day and rest. Our current culture does not allow for these periods of rest. It's go, 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 harder. The harder you go, the more you work, the more money you make, the more you can buy, the more power you have. And in that, you're seeing very sad, maybe wealthy, but sad, disgruntled, hurting people because they haven't found how to love themselves. It's okay to want to have money, but when it becomes the driving factor for all that you do and you sacrifice yourself, you're not being kind to yourself. And so working hard on continuing to show yourself grace and love will change the trajectory of where you're going in life. It'll change your path. You can still achieve all those things, wealth and careers and whatever it is that you want to. But do it through the process of healing. Heal first, and then seek after these things. It will show up in one way or another. The unhealed version of you, you'll keep moving forward, but are you going to be pulling along all this heavy baggage? Allow yourself to lay it down. Speaking from a pastor's wife perspective, I spent a very long time being told I needed to pray more and that I needed to lay it at the altar. And these things are essentially true. I did need to pray more and lay these things at the altar. But there were so many times I would go to the altar sobbing and begging God and saying, "Here, God, I give you all of this," but not even understanding where it was coming from. And when I started the counseling journey and started having professional help to piece together some of what I was feeling, putting words to the things I was feeling, putting descriptions of the feelings and emotions into words that I could understand and comprehend that, oh, this is why I've done this, or this is why I have felt this way. It's important that we don't discourage others from seeking professional help. If someone breaks their foot, I have never looked at them and said, "You need to pray more and leave that at the altar." God is the creator of all. Yes, He can heal, but He's also given us counselors. And the scripture even says, wonderful counselor. Yes, He is our wonderful. He is our counselor. He is our all in all. And I haven't forsaken that through this process. If anything, I've learned in finding myself how to love Him, how I was created to love Him. So we have to be cautious in how we tell people to deal with their issues. all of us have walked a different journey. All of us have walked down a different path. We've all been dealt a different hand, if you will. And no two people's pasts are alike. Even siblings growing up in the same home have different perspectives, have different things that happened. They will turn out differently. Many similarities, yes. But we can't lay these blanket statements on people. We can't judge every person who has anxiety or depression as crazy. A lot of times their anxiety and depression is an underlying root issue, an unhealed area of their life that desperately needs attention, that needs balm applied to it, that needs a dressing applied to it, that needs some nurturing. When we're healing wounds in the medical field, we have to take a lot of time and patience, and we have to heal it from the deepest part of that wound. From the deepest part of that wound, you have to heal it. And it can take forever. There can be little tunnels that have branched off, and you have to heal each of those parts, and everything you bring comes together, and it continues to rise up until you get to the surface. It takes a lot of patience, a lot of time, a lot of skill. So when we're healing these physical wounds, people will be sympathetic. And I urge you to be just as sympathetic with others or yourself when you're healing those emotional wounds. Just because you have wounds from your past that are unhealed and it comes out in anxiety or reactions to people, poor overreactions, or if it comes out in, poor decisions, the quality of your decisions, it says on here, or the way you talk to yourself, we still have to be patient and go back and look at these wounds and say, I'm going to allow the time to heal these layer by layer. And I'm going to understand that sometimes that one layer is going to open back up and I'm going to have to hit that bottom layer again and rebuild and rebuild. And I'm going to be patient with myself, or I'm going to be patient with my loved one. In the beginning of this journey, my husband didn't understand all of this. And things would come up from my past and we'd have to rehash some of that. And feelings would come up that just hurt. And it hurt so deeply. But then I'd process it. 2 or 3 days would go by and there'd be some healing. There'd be some new tissue forming. That wound would start to have some closure to it. And then we'd hit another wound and we would work through that, and some sadness and pain would come from it. And next thing you know, there's this tissue growing back together and another layer is forming. And layer by layer, healing was happening. And my husband got to see, wow, she's changing. He'll say things like, you're my hero. And before I'd be like, oh, but now I'm very proud of myself for working so hard through these issues. And I see that everyone has the potential for healing. Healing is possible. You have to put the work in. No one can do it for you. It is hard, but the end result is so beautiful. And I encourage you to work and find that healing so that it doesn't show up and manifest in these other ways that I've showed you today. That you can come and be the person you've always wanted to be, that you can present yourself in a way that you've always wanted to present yourself, that you can be confident in your walk. You can be confident in your walk in your relationships, your walk with God, with your friends, with your spouse, your employees, those around you. I am kinder. I don't make such rash decisions. I give people grace. And I realize a lot of times the attitude they're portraying towards me usually doesn't have anything to do with me. More to do with them than it does with me. I pray that you continue to give yourself grace, that you find yourself willing to go on this healing journey. And I am looking forward to talking to you again soon. I hope you enjoyed today's content. You can listen to us on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, like our page on Facebook at Here We Grow Again podcast. And I pray that you have a wonderful day. And remember, you deserve the love that you are trying to give everyone else.